Just realised I was singing as I had the microphone on, so you can tell it's a yes from me, and it's a yes from Brian, and so too from Gary. So Rhonda, you're going so well so far. 0437 922 720. If you want to tell us, what did you think of Steelers Wheel and Stuck in the Middle with You? It was Rhonda's choice this morning for our sing-along, and it's definitely one. I think it's a natural sing-along song. Kirstin Bouse joins me in the studio, and we're talking about New Year's resolutions and ways of sticking with it. Would you sing along to that?
I would sing along to that, but I sing along to most things.
Oh, let it go, let it go. See, that's a good one for New Year's. Yeah, the old, unfortunately, there was a lot of women who had children around the time of the let it go period, and I found myself singing along to that way too often.
Oh, yes. Well, we submitted our eldest son to it.
Oh, did
He's
you?
16.
Oh,
yeah.
no. Poor boy.
I know.
Poor boy. Now, tell us about New Year's resolutions, because we're on to day 6, are we? Is it the 6th of January?
Yep.
Yes. Day 7 of the new year, and I'm sure a lot of people have fallen off the bandwagon, on the bandwagon, off the bandwagon. That is a phrase that I need to learn.
I think it's
fallen off the horse.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah,
already.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I believe some of the stats are 8% of people only ever achieve their New Year's resolutions. So the stats very much say that it's easy for us to not achieve our goals, basically. Yeah.
That's a little sad.
I know, it's a bit sobering. Sorry, so early on a Saturday.
So why is that? Why can't people stick to it?
Well, I think there's a number of things. I think, we start a new year and we have this hope and optimism, and we're doing it as well during our school holidays and our work holidays and things. So we've got all the enthusiasm in the world. We've got a bit more time usually as well. And so, we set these goals with this beautiful environment that simply doesn't continue. I mean, the reality is, certainly for those of us who are parents, once February kicks in, you're back into school mode and life becomes chaotic. So achieving goals and doing the things that you need to do to achieve them become harder the busier you get. I think as well, people don't break down their goals enough. So they come up with quite large goals, and, sometimes they take a while to achieve, and we just lose motivation. We don't know the smaller steps. We don't celebrate the smaller wins that we have along the way, and we just get a bit jaded, really.
You're on 720 ABC Perth. You're with me, Sinead Mangan, and I'm speaking to clinical and forensic psychologist Kirstin Bouse. Now, you talk, Kirstin, about intentions rather than goals. Can you explain what that means? What do you mean by an intention?
Yeah, look, it's a funny thing. I guess it's a bit on trend at the moment to be setting intentions, and certainly in the business world, most people set intentions for the day or the week or the month anyway, as opposed to a year. But an intention is really more a values-based way of living your life or way of being. So a goal might be, I want to lose 5 kilos, 10 kilos or whatever. An intention, it might be more along the lines of, I want to put a lot more habits into my life today, or this week or this year, or I'm going to live life and I'm going to focus on self-compassion this year. Mm-hmm. So people come up with something that was meaningful for them, and usually the best way to go about it is to reflect on the year previously and think, well, what was missing? What could I add to my life now to kind of ground me throughout the year coming that will help me when I get to the end of 2017 look back and think, yeah, I lived in a way that matched my value system and a way that felt right for me. So
give me an example of that. So you're talking about a one-word intention?
Yeah, one word or one phrase, I guess. Look, I've heard everything from, as I said, self-compassion. So somebody who sets the intention for 2017 to be more compassionate towards themselves may actually, and they can set up this kind of review system as often as they want. They might do it weekly or monthly, but they might be thinking, okay, what are the things this month that I can do that would actually uphold that value of self self-compassion. So they're going to be kinder to themselves. And for 1 month, it might be, I'm really, really tired. I've just come out of a really busy time at work. So I'm going to sleep a bit more. I'm going to lay low a bit more. I'm going to look after myself better. So rather than having 1 or 2 big goals, when you've got a word like self-compassion to ground you through the year, it's something that you regularly look at and think, well, what can self-compassion mean for me this month based on how I have been living life? What is compassionate, behaviour for me to engage in? And that can change. And the reason then why it works is because it does follow your natural flow of your life, I guess. Self-compassion 1 month actually might be, no, I've been a bit lazy and I haven't been exercising at all. I haven't been outside. I haven't seen the trees. That's going to be something that I want to do. That's about looking after myself and being kind to myself.
Or I suppose if you're a busy person and you're always, say, looking after, if you've elderly parents, you're always looking after your parents.
Yep.
And that's what you do most of the time when
Yep.
you're not juggling the other things.
Yep.
Self-compassion might be, actually today I'm going to take a walk around the lake or go.
Yes.
So that is being kind to yourself.
Yeah, and
which will be kind to others in the end anyway.
Oh, ultimately, absolutely. And I think, have you heard of the movie The Year, or the kind of concept of the year of saying yes? So
I have. See, I like that. Literally makes me. It kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth.
Does it?
Yeah, it's just like, it sounds so American.
Well, to be honest, mine might be the year of saying no, to be honest, because I say yes too often.
But I'm someone who would put a roadblock with something like that, going,
Yep.
oh, no, it sounds like a fad or a...
Yep.
But tell us how that would work. Never mind what I think about it.
Well, I guess the year of saying yes might come about. You may choose to have that as your intention because you look back on 2016 and think, you know what, my fear or my inhibitions or my, not wanting to follow a trend or a fad, I said no. And because of that, I missed out on some really good opportunities. So that's where I guess an intention is value driven, and it's driven by perhaps having missed out on something or realised something from the year ahead. It's not plucked from thin air. It's got to have meaning for you and value for you. So the year of saying yes may well be, when I get an opportunity, my first response isn't going to be no. My first response may not also be yes. I've got to fit it into life somehow, but I'm going to walk through the 2017 year with an attitude of being more open and considering saying yes more often. So that might be how it plays out for you.
And for you, the year of saying no, how could that play out?
Well, my kids probably say I say no all the time, but the year of saying no for me would be I do, whether it's fear of missing out, I'm not quite sure, but yes. I say yes to a lot of things, and I do get myself very, very busy, and often I have a bit of a scattergun approach to life so, rather than a strategic kind of approach. So it would be sitting back and thinking, well, how does this fit for me? I need to default to no a bit more often, I think.
I think there's lots of us that are like that. There's no doubt. You mentioned the word habits. Yeah. So how do these fit in with intention?
Well, this is actually the no is not so much my intention for this year. The habits is my intention for this year, and where it's come from is I do have some really good habits. I walk, for an hour 4 or 5 mornings a week, and that's well and truly ingrained in my routine. And, by doing that, what I've realised is I actually don't have a decision to make about whether I exercise or not. It's just something I do. It's as routine as cleaning my teeth. So I don't have that cognitive process, that thinking process of, do I, don't I, where do I fit it in or whatever. It just happens. For me, I want to put that in other elements of my life. And to be honest, I run a couple of businesses, and that's really where habits is going to play out. So I'm going to look at where I can create habits of doing certain tasks at certain times. Maybe on a particular day I'll be doing certain things and just make that my routine. So I stop thinking, do I or don't I do it, or when do I do it, or any of that kind of stuff. My head's very busy. I'm trying to streamline my life.
So it does sound, though, Kirstin, that the whole thing about this is when it comes to goal setting and even with intentions, the less you refer to cognitive thinking, that draws down on you more than obviously we realise.
Absolutely.
How much we're processing. I didn't get that walk in, or I didn't lose those kilos, or I didn't. And and then you get into this negative loop again.
Yeah. There's an author called Gretchen Rubin, and she has written a book, and the name escapes me right now, but if people Google it, it'll come up. And it's all about habit setting, and I guess change and making change in your life. And, she really unpacks how you go about doing that. It's a great, great book. And one of the things she definitely talks about is, the more decision making you give yourself, the busier your head is, the more tiring it is kind of psychologically for you. So where you can streamline your life, the better, basically. And a really low-key but amusing example of this is my youngest seems to eat constantly during the school holidays. He's 8. And one school holidays, I was fed up with him kind of saying to me, can I have this, can I have this, can I have this? And thinking, okay, well, has he had chips earlier today? Can he have the treat now? And so I drew up a schedule, and he has to have 5 foods from one list before he can have 1 food from the other list.
And how did he go with that?
Yeah. He
worked.
Yep.
Okay.
Because I just said, essentially talk to the hand if he kind of asked me, go to the list.
Yes. Have you ticked that box?
Yes.
There's your answer. I don't need to be busy with this. I understand that too. But that's because our lives are a little bit similar that way, I think.
Yes, I think.
Now, you talked about simplifying.
Yep.
So the big buzz thing, and I know it's in a different vein, but is this Marie Kondo decluttering and all of that, and it seems to be, she's been around for a while, but people are really getting into it at the moment, and whether things bring you joy. This is how you declutter. Does this cup bring me joy? Do those pair of runners bring me joy? Does this is that an intentional based thing too, that you're giving intention to your objects, I suppose?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think that really is about consciousness. It's about living consciously. So, and making choices consciously rather than having clutter just by default because you accumulate things. She's really talking about, making a conscious decision as to whether that particular item serves you. Now, I personally think, does it bring me joy? There's certainly some outfits and shoes that might bring me joy.
Yeah.
But, inanimate objects, I would probably look at more, does it serve a function for me? Is it useful? Have I used it in the last 6 months? And I think they're good questions to ask yourself, because then you can actually reduce the clutter.
I find it fascinating how much people have really latched on to that idea, though, and I think it's because there's a value based on it. It kind of connects to what you're saying in terms of you're placing a different value other than it's stuff. I think we're becoming more mindful of consumerism. I think that's the first thing. And the next fad, op shops have always been around, and recycling, has been around for a while now, but it seems to be gaining a lot of momentum. People are really wanting, as a value-based thing, to turn their backs as much on consumerism as possible. So I think that's another thing. But we know that the more stimulus you have in your environment, the busier your head is, because you've got a lot more to process. So I think in our very, very busy lives, we're actually wanting to come home and not be even more stimulated by the crap lying around and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's where it comes from, is really just trying to create a sense of calm in at least one environment, which hopefully is our home. And what some people might need to do is really, really reduce the clutter. Other people might need to just put some stuff away. The reason I mention that is because I know for a lot of people, their New Year's resolutions centred around decluttering.
Yes.
So how would you make that an intention?
Well, I guess there's a number of things you can do. One is you can make an intention that you'll put things back in the same place each time. If you're going to spring clean your house, you probably, if it's anything like mine, you need a good couple of weeks to do it. So it may be better to break it down and say, okay, I'm going to actually go through my clothes, or I'm going to go through my kids' clothes, and I'm going to go through the Tupperware drawer that, doesn't have matching lids and bottoms and stuff.
Is the intention there, I suppose I'm getting back to, is that calm? that what I want this year is a sense of calm. Would that be the intention behind that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to kind of understand it.
Yeah. And that's where it's, okay, I want a sense of calm. And for someone, it might be to have that I need to declutter, or to have that I need to have habits or systems, or to have that, I need to meditate once a day. So I think that that's where one word you then apply to how it fits for you. And that's the important thing. There's no point trying to achieve somebody else's goal, something that's of value to somebody else, which is of no value or limited value to you. You certainly are not going to achieve. It's got to have meaning for you. It's got to have utility for you. It's got to make your life better, easier, those kinds of things.
Now, this word intention, or the practice of intention, you use a lot in your work. Can you give us an example of where it's really helped someone?
Yeah, well, definitely. I think the calm or the compassion are very much things that I talk about often, particularly with mums, because I think we live in the complete opposite of those. And so I've even got a couple of faces running through my mind now where they've talked about, well, what can I do to actually make life calmer? One did certainly create a lot more routine, and that was difficult for her. So we kind of really did it step by step by step, really, really broke it down. And once she got into the swing of things, life actually was a lot calmer. She wasn't running around doing the lunches for school in the morning because she'd, really set herself a goal of doing them the night before and having them ready. So there were small actions that she was able to take based on where life was least calm. That's where we started working. I certainly work with mums who are really, really self-critical as well. So one particular mother, actually, I asked her to keep a diary of some of the lovely things she did that day, or how she helped her children, or how she interacted with her children positively, because she actually felt that so much of her mothering was wrong, bad, hopeless, all those kinds of negative words. And what she realised is what an unrealistic perspective she had. Didn't change that there was still areas where she was imperfect. That's what we are. We're human. But it helped balance. So she actually felt a lot better about herself, because she wasn't ignoring the good stuff. She was actually embracing the whole shebang, good and not so good.
So if I was to sit down after the show and write myself an intention, can you talk me through doing that?
Yeah, I think the first step is always about, well, what's important to you, and I can't dictate that to you. What might be important to you this year, 2017, January, might be different next January. But it would be, okay, what's one area of how I live my life that's important to me that I'd like to tweak or improve upon or focus on, really. And do you have any ideas about that? Can I ask you?
Oh, we're going to do this on air. I'm kind of asking so that other people
okay. Well, let's just say it's
whoa.
therapy session ready to go. No.
Don't know that people really want to hear what's inside my head.
Look, one of the common ones is actually health. And so if that was your focus of, I'm going to take actions that, support my health as best as possible, it might be, as I said, you're back at work already. The holiday for you was very short. And you might think, well, what was it about the holiday that I did have that, I did that supported my health, that made me feel healthy, strong, rested, clear of mind, whatever. And it might be, okay, what can I do to put that into my life? And you might, as I said, just be trying to implement one thing for a month, and then you look back and think, wow, I managed to achieve that. Do I feel as though it helped my health? Yes, it did. Do I want to continue? Is there something else I want to do? But it's just always anchoring yourself with what health means to you. If that's your intention, what does it mean to you? And that can ebb and flow over the course of the year.
I mean, I have had words over the years that I've used, and like authentic would be one. Does that feel authentic to me? Do I sound authentic? Is that me?
Yeah.
And I would apply that to, all right, I'm running now, I'm swimming now, whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, swimming feels authentic to me. That's what I like to do, so I'll continue to do that.
Yeah. That's perfect.
the kind of way I would think about it. Not to fob you off in the psychology. But I don't know that people really want to know.
No, but no. I think that's a classic example, and that's where somebody else, the word authentic, could play out in a very, very different way.
Yeah.
It's what's important to you, and that becomes doable, don't you think? Then?
Yeah, it was very handy.
Exactly,
very
as
handy.
Opposed to I'm going to swim 4 or 5 days a week or whatever.
Which would be the way I would go about it in the past.
Yes.
But I found it easier just to make it simple.
And that's the point of intention. It tends to be much easier to achieve.
Kirstin, you're a wise woman. Thanks for coming in.
That. Thank you.
That's Kirstin.